Welcome back to Unleashing. I'm your host, Jared Bueller. I want to do something a little bit different in this video. Friend and certain follower of the YouTube channel that we have here, who I know on Facebook, she was sent something the other day and made the statement what some of her friends thought. And even though we talked afterwards, and she totally believes God and there's a deception here and stuff like that, we ended up talking, and I said that I would like to maybe discuss it on the video because it has some things in it that point to New Age movement and some of the other stuff, and I felt that if I read this and went over it and talked about a few different things that it might help some people, especially that might be dealing with the New Age movement or some of the other stuff, and you can see where it comes from and some of the other details that are involved with it. So I'm going to read this, and it's going to take a little while, so sit back and enjoy yourself. But I'm going to stop during different parts and make points and discussion and stuff on the whole thing, and how this is all pointing to end time events and how it's going to roll into play. And a lot of this belief and stuff, especially in the New Age, is going to fall right into it and lead to a massive deception. So I just want to thank Joanna for letting me use this, and I'm going to get started here. I'm going to try and keep this as organized as possible too, because there's a few different people talking and telling their stories. So I'll try and make the point. But the person who received this the other day that I talked to, they're getting this written to them from somebody that they know. And this is this person speaking to them before they tell their story of two other people. And the title of this is Montauk Project Meets Q. Just a quick summary. The Montauk Project was a project took place on the Air Force Base or whatever it was involved with for a time, from what they've at least allowed to know, on the Newark Island in the north parts. They did all kinds of experiments with psychic abilities, time travel, teleportation, and other things like that. They were supposedly able to enhance psychic abilities to the point where people could bring things into this reality. Your show Stranger Things is based off this very same project, Montauk Project. I've talked about it on different occasions and stuff like that, for enhancing psychic abilities and things like that. Some of the ideas was to bring the enemy's worst fear into a reality where they could use it to scare the enemy and help in troops in advantage and stuff like that. But they messed around with teleportation and other things like that, which I've discussed before, with time travel, Project Pegasus, Andrew Rosago, and some of the stories and stuff like that, which gets even crazier with teleportation to Mars and things like that. All this stuff is real. Head of Lockheed Martin on his deathbed, he's confirmed that there's nothing that they haven't done and things like that. And like I say, it gets pretty crazy. If people knew the truth about stuff, it'd be pretty wild. But I'm going to show you how this feeds into the New Age movement and the people that are involved and stuff like that. When you start hearing some of the inside stuff, it gets pretty interesting. But I'm going to discuss it and kind of go along here. So here we go. 20 years ago, I was the line producer of a main segment of TV pilot about the Montauk Project for a series that was successfully sold to British Channel 4, which you can see here. And we're not going to see that, but I'm just going to read this. At the time, I was in the middle of writing a book about the Montauk Project that had been commissioned by Peter Moon and Sky Books, publisher of the notorious underground series of survivors of Montauk Project, including the late Preston Nichols and Stuart Swerdell. Having met and interviewed the main proponents of the story, I was able to convince them to let me bring a TV crew into their home. I was later mortified when the producer edited the footage into a takedown of Preston and Stuart. Preston was past caring about Stuart, but Stuart was furious at me, and I felt as used as he did. During the very strange 4-year period, I immersed myself in the story and became close friends with the late Glenn Pruitt, son of Jack, who everybody claimed was the director of the project, in charge of hiring, firing, and paying personnel. It was very disturbing. I felt as if I was being swallowed up in a parallel universe of the Montauk Project. I felt that I began to understand the toroidal architecture of how these timelines propagate while they bled through into my normal reality. There's reasons for this, and this has to do with the other dimensions and realities and stuff like that. My dreams became more real than my waking life. I also experienced many precognitive dreams, including about 9/11, down to the details of WTC rubble still burning for months after the attacks. That dream was literally the most terrifying experience I ever had. I was in the presence of pure evil. When I landed in a demanding office job, I was finally able to turn my back on this dark world that that had so thoroughly consumed me, and I shut it out. Others like Stuart Swirldale, interviewed here by Laura Eisenhower, did not have that choice, though he has long since achieved equanimity. It's so interesting 20 years later to hear the views on CERN and parallel timelines that are completely in alignment with my own. He also talks about the history of human species, extraterrestrials, DNA, humanity, spiritual immaturity, the process of ascension, and so much more. It's an excellent interview. I was so very surprised to see him weigh in on the Q phenomenon. Okay, this is the person who sent the letters, belief in this, and he knew these people, Preston, stuff like that, from the show that they were involved in, that they were working on, which ended up getting sold to European broadcasting or whatever it was. Okay. So this is him just putting his 2 cents before he brings it to this interview with one of the guys that he knew from there, which his name is Stuart Swerdlow, and he's being interviewed by Laura Eisenhower. Laura Eisenhower is almost like your Linda Moulton Howe. She's into New Age movement and some of the other stuff involved, and she's doing an interview with this person. I'm talking to him, getting some inside scoop and stuff like that, and he's bringing it forth, and that's what this discussion is on. And I'm just gonna chime in during the whole thing as I read it and talk about some different things, and you're gonna see how this stuff really lines up with different stuff and what they know and things like that. So. All right, here we go. Stuart Swerdell, this is him speaking. If you were to ask me that question, and she just asked him, what are your thoughts on Q? All right, if you guys don't know what Q is by this time, it's that crazy operation that's going along with President Trump, okay? That there's a movement, there's an insider that is speaking the truth and giving out plans that they're going to bring down the elites, the pedophiles, and all that other stuff, and that Trump was chosen by God and all this other stuff, and they're going to usher in this new time of peace, and everything's going to be glorious and stuff like that. Those that are looking for the rapture and know Jesus and how things get way worse and stuff, the only thing that comes that is a front for being good is the Antichrist movement and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. All right, here we go. What are your thoughts on Q? Stuart Swirldale, his response is, if you were to ask me that question a year and a half ago, I may have had a different answer for you, but on July 18, 2018, I was asked to do an interview with a radio host by the name of Max Steele. It's not his real name, but that was his public persona. And it was a radio show where you would see yourself on the screen and you would see him, and then they'd be the question on the side, so on, and there was a code that you'd have to enter in order to participate on the radio show. So a little bit into the show, all of a sudden something broke into the audio and the visual and just started typing, "This is Q." And I thought, no, what's going on here? I didn't really accept Q up until then, and the host became absolutely livid, saying, "Who are you and how'd you break in? There's a code, you can't get in here," and it's typed in. And it typed in, "We know everything, this is Q speaking." And then the host said, "Unmute yourself and speak," and it unmuted himself, and it was a computerized voice. In other words, and you guys have seen this before with a lot of the fake Q stuff and the mask off of V for Vendetta and stuff like that. This movement has kind of started in that way, which of course is a type of control, and it's all moving in that direction. All right, they put stuff out there in movies and things like that, and but they're controlling all the other side. They control the other sides, and this gets down to division and chaos, and order out of chaos and stuff like that the Illuminati brings in. Okay, here we go. And they said, "We have been watching you since early 2000. At this point, I started asking my questions about the alien agenda, human history, DNA, everything. I felt like I was in a deep position, and just on and on. Finally, I went silent again." And the host was absolutely in shock, and so was I. To be honest, the very next day, the host called me and gave me a private line that he said was a secure line, and I would please speak to him. So I spoke to him, and he said that this group Q called me after the show and said to tell you a message that from this point on you're protected by them. I have no idea to this day what that really means, but that's what happened, and unfortunately a few months later the host suddenly passed away. That show is not on anymore. That doesn't surprise me. The government shuts down shows and different things like that all the time. Sometimes it's for a reason. Sometimes it's to put stuff out to make people think that they're getting to something, only to pull away, and it was only to string them along. The same technique that Satan used with a lot of things, where they only get enough information, especially in the New Age movement and stuff like that. This higher consciousness idea. but you never really get to the point, and you're only dragged on until you've spent up your time. And when that time's up, you go to the judgment. And if you're not walking with Jesus, you haven't bent the knee, then you go to the wrong place, and a place you don't want to have anything to do with. Okay, the Q movement, as I have subsequently found in the past year or so, is legitimate. Q is not a person, it is a group. It's less than 10 people, approximately 9, 6 of whom are deep military intelligence. The other 3 are alien, extraterrestrial, and they have been monitoring for a very long time. They're connected, the extraterrestrial part, to what I have been talking about for the last 12 to 13 years as being part of the Kuiper belt group, which I now will discuss in a movement that they have an agenda to remove the deep state from this planet. Okay, right there. Right there, when we get to the point about any alien connection, you guys have heard me say it multiple times. All right, aliens are Nephilim, fallen angel, and they use organic bodies, which are like androids. They work the same way, and that's all part of. There are no good ones. There are no bad ones. They're playing the part of good and bad, and they have been the whole time, and they're playing it, and they've been playing it for years and years and years. And this is part of the great deception. They could fool everybody, and it will. You guys know what I saw in my vision? The UFOs. They're the first thing to show up right on the scene when the rapture happened, and they were big, and from what I could tell, I'm guessing they popped out all over the place. It wasn't just where I was at. Okay. Because out there in the universe, and I would say plural, not just in this universe, but in parallel ones, in the alternative ones, that the Earth is considered to be a very dangerous place. For all intent and purposes, the Earth is like Syria of the universe. Humans are considered to be hostile, dangerous, unpredictable, uncontrollable, and so on. So from my perspective, the agenda of Q is to eliminate the Illuminati, deep state, and a hybrid reptilian race that seeks to occupy and control the planet and human race, and then to incorporate a galactic universal, universal group to continue our progression through the spiritual evolution, not physical evolution, but spiritual evolution. All right, this would be Christ consciousness, ascending to the next level. Those that are ready for it, those that are into New Age movement, for my point of view, those that have their eyes glazed over, because that's exactly what it looks like to me when I see them. Their eyes are completely glazed over, like somebody that's been doped up, and that's exactly what it's like. And if you get into this stuff too deep, it can't. If you're going to get out of it, it's going to take a cultural shock. You're going to see a UFO or something like that. You're going to be around it that is so massive or so evil that you're going to go running for the hills, and you're going to be looking for answers or a way to escape that. I've seen people lose their minds on this when they find out the truth and when they've seen it personally. And then there's others that they should jar them right into turning to Jesus, and then they find that peace, and they know that He's the one with power. And just like running to your dad as a child, and you get behind him, you don't have to worry about anything anymore. You're completely protected. It's very important, but it comes down to the personal relationship that you have with Jesus. Okay. And deep state or Illuminati, they know their days are numbered. This is why they're seeing such attacks, why we're seeing such hostility at levels never seen before, and unfortunately this will continue. My opinion is that we're in an unannounced civil war. In other words, it's not declared war, it's unannounced, and most people out there wouldn't be aware of it, but we're are deeply in a war, and the war is spiritual. It's both physical, spiritual, but mostly it's spiritual. Okay, this is the guest or the host who's asking the question. Lord Eisenhower, you see the word extraterrestrial for the you use the word extraterrestrial for the Q group. Stuart Swerdall answers and replies, I would say it's both human and extraterrestrial. It's both. You mentioned the Draco, the reptilian group, who were actually the first ones here. They were the first ones on this planet to colonize. So from their perspective, it's the world. We are the ones that came subsequently. I'm going to stop right there. There was nobody else here before this gets into gap theory. All right, that's why I stay away from it. It's nonsense. There are so many things that prove the very short existence of our time. All right, the story of Noah and the flood, it's all absolutely real, and it's as quick and as easy, and people look over it. When you're not walking with God, it's easy to step right over the facts that you need. 1960s, we had a population of 3.5 billion, half of what we are right now. In the 1900s, it was about 1 billion. Back in Jesus' time, it was 200 million worldwide. That's only 2,000 years, and we've lost 96% of the whole world's population, all right? One that was supposed to be started millions of years ago, and in 2,000 years, we've taken out that whole population. How conceivable is it that you just go back 2,000 more years and that takes out the timeline of the rest of the 200 million, and we started from 8 people off the Noah's Ark? Makes perfect sense, and it lines up with it perfectly. The story of evolution taking place and us being here for a million years or being seeded and stuff like that, the problem with that is it's already been calculated before, and even counting in wars and stuff like that, it puts like 6 people per square inch. You just can't take people out fast enough. There's just too many, and the population increase, it's just enormous, and we can see that during that. There's multiple other things I've covered, but that's not going to be the point of this, all right? There was no aliens before this. I do not believe in the gap theory. There's a number of things that point to the young Earth, all right, including the shrinking of the sun. We lose 5 miles in diameter a year. They've known it since the 1850s. By studying it, the moon slipping away, the rotation of the Earth slowing down, all kinds of other things, all right, that they've known about. All the events that have ever taken place have happened in this 6,000 years in this dimension. Do I believe in other higher dimensions and stuff like that? Angels being before this? Yes, I do. I believe they were there. I believe the sons of God talking about the angels were there when he created, spoken of in Job, and they saw this whole thing get planned out. And as the plan progressed further and further into where it's told that he was going to create us lower than the angels, but then we get higher. I believe this could be part of the spark that made Lucifer rebel, but we won't know totally until the time comes, all right? But anyways, don't believe in that nonsense about them being here or the aliens or anything like that, and I don't take the gap theory whatsoever, all right? So here's the thing. As they hybridized the human race from the Sumerian civilization onward, as we got to the formation of the Illuminati in the 800s, I don't believe the Illuminati was started in the 800s. I believe it started right when the Roman Catholic Church was founded. I believe it was a back door, almost like the flip to a coin. It started and it's been growing and moving with them, and they only made the front to the Illuminati with their front man in 1776 or whatever it was that they started it here. But I believe it was growing, maybe without the name of the Illuminati, for a long, long time. Because I believe the Roman Catholic Church was started by Simon the Magus from Acts chapter 8 with this Babylonian magicianry and other stuff like that you find, and go back to the beginning of the Roman Catholic Church is what was in the part of the movements and stuff. All right. That there subsequently be an agenda with the Illuminati, usurp, overwhelming agenda of the Draco. So the Illuminati now perceive themselves as their rulers, not the Draco. So I believe that that it was the Draco themselves who called the Kuiper Belt Group into coalition to overwhelm and remove the deep state. All right, so now you got supposedly aliens they're working on. So why don't they just show their faces, right? That's the big question. The answer to that is Christians and those walking with Jesus. They can be rebuked. And the time's going to come, though, during the tribulation, where God's going to be down, things won't be the same, and the restrainer is going to be removed. And they're going to be able to show their faces then. And this is why I believe that the alien invasion and stuff like that, when they first show themselves, the big one, happens right around the same time as the rapture, which is what I saw in that vision. All right. So it's a very complicated situation. There are fractions within fractions. So that you do not know who to trust, you don't know what to believe, because even within the group, there can be saboteurs. Laura Eisenhower asked him, right, rogues, those that are branched off and are doing their own thing to join other alliances and these different levels of, just like the human race, and that's, why there's just negative or positive. It's a mixed bag. Would you say within pretty much most species? Stewart replies, yes, correct. Correct. Even with Q, there have been infiltrators, if you would say. I should not say within Q, within what they call QAnon, those who support Q. And by the way, President Trump, this is him speaking still, is known as Q+. So he's not exactly Q, but he's working with Q. That should be a red flag right there, right? If any of this gives any validity, and I believe there's a lot of stuff that goes with this to be true, okay? If Trump is working with Q, and I believe that they've discussed and sort of hinted at the whole time, it's very dangerous, especially if there's an alien connection. And I know that there is, because there's a demon connection, especially between the deep state and all the darkness and stuff going on. But like you say, they're playing every single side at once. They create the bad guy or the straw man to destroy it, to make it look like they're the good guy. People that have been abducted, all right? Grays are the bad guys. And the tall whites, the blonde hair, blue eyes, and stuff like those are the good guys. They have a problem with the grays, supposedly the story goes. Yet on certain abductions, they see that grays are working for them. All right, for the tall blonde stuff, like it's all part of a ploy. It's all part of an agenda. They will destroy themselves in the process to make it look like a reality, but it's all for a massive deception, because the ultimate game is to deceive as many as possible and take them to hell. All right, and they're playing for keeps. It's not a joke. she recruited him, talking about Trump, in 2015, and that's why he has become president. I think he was shocked as everyone else as far as that's concerned, and that's a whole nother story in itself. Very interesting. This lines up with quite a few stories that Trump was picked from the very beginning. Joni, or whatever her name is, from An Hour to Midnight, made the story when she was in a briefing in a high Mason lodge that she was working at the time, and talked to Crybaby Boehner, who had a guard with him. And in the presence of him walking up to her and talking, the demon possession that he had was lowered, and he didn't even realize it, where he started revealing secrets. And he confirmed and said that she said, well, I think that Trump might win way before the elections. And he goes, yeah, you're absolutely right. We picked him a couple of years ago, and he will be. All right, and a few other things, and only when he walked away and he was out of the presence of God, other Holy Spirit, that the demon entered back in, and he had a shocked face, like, what did he just did? He shut his mouth and walked out the door with Boehner as fast as possible. Very interesting. You guys know what happened to me in 2016. I was in the process of praying that he would get in, talking about Trump. And I've told this story multiple times. I was being sincere. What am I doing in this situation? The same thing I'm always teaching you guys. You go to God first. I wasn't going to somebody else. I wasn't asking questions what they think. I was saying, God, what do you think about this? He shut me down right on the spot, and he said, let the dead bury the dead. I'm like, whoa. Told you before, if Trump's doing something good like blocking abortions, things like that, hey, that's great, all for it, that's totally fine. But God told me to let the dead bury the dead with him. I've been cautious the whole time, and I don't care what somebody's doing. If it's good for the purpose of deceiving later, then it's bad news right from the start, and you don't want to be on board with that situation, okay? Laura Eisenhower asked him, it's one that's so hard to talk about without people going completely the political part, and how people have been so ingrained in the division and just needing to fight their side without seeing the bigger picture, which is so important. Stewart replies, yes. In my observation, the majority of the population of the United States actually does support it. Many remain silent for fear, ridicule, attack, and so on. And by the way, Epstein's not dead. He's been sequestered somewhere until the proper time, which will be very soon. I think by October, if not sooner, there will be the release of declassification indictments against people that you would not believe. We've heard this before multiple times with the Q scenario as well, that these guys are going down, there's going down, trust the plan, trust the plan, trust the plan. Well, the plan just seems to extend out, go further, while other plans are taking place which look like the covenant with many and the tribulation. So why people get themselves on board and get this comfort that everything is going to be taken care of, while in the background the economy is about to collapse and it looks like the four horsemen are about to ride, people are lowering their guard. What happens when you lower your guard? You step away from God, you start to get into sin and things like, things are going to be okay, I'll worry about that later when I get older. That very dangerous route that you can take where you come to full circle in older age, where I believe a lot of people get saved and turn to God, and that's totally fine, and I believe they're in heaven. But the dangerous part is during that time when you're walking away from God. This steps into things that I discussed multiple times, like once saved, always saved, and the dangers of it, all right? You don't say a prayer once and get to live like hell and expect to go, all right? If you've done that and you've stepped away because you're uncomfortable talking to God or asking forgiveness while you're in an affair or you're fornicating and stuff like that, I understand. It's not comfortable. So you're going to do one thing. You're going to stop fornicating and stay close to God, or you're going to push God away a little bit so you don't have to feel that uncomfortableness. And this is what many people do. They do the latter, okay? And next thing you know, you're in a dangerous spot. You can find yourself left behind. Remember, I saw 8 people going up, okay? There's lots of people that claim to be Christians up in Sandpoint. I saw 8 people in the vicinity that I had, and I know out in that area there's over 2,000 people, and I guarantee more than 8 of them are going to church, all right? Very small numbers, all right? This is what I saw. I haven't changed it. Nothing's changed. This is what I saw. I'm sharing it with you, okay? Laura Eisenhower, well, at this point, nothing can. I don't feel shocked by much, but it certainly will be interesting. I can't imagine the shakeup of this going to do a lot of people that have attached themselves to so many of these folks. So is there anything about the Kuiper belt that you would want to share before we kind of shift gears? Next part, extraterrestrials, he speaks. Stuart Little says, well, I think most people don't even know what the Kuiper belt is. He's going to explain it here, so I don't need to. So if we can envision the solar system, the sun with the planets around the solar system in orbit, at the very edge of the solar system, actually, let's say from planet Neptune outward, there's a field that's called the Kuiper belt. This is an energetic location. Think of it almost like membrane surrounding the cell of a solar system, and beyond that is something called the Oort belt. Talking about an energy field that he's talking about, this gets into things like the Primer field and how the electric universe works. I've discussed this a little bit with the Hollow Earth video that I made a long time ago. Everybody's welcome to watch, and I did a couple different diagrams to try and show what that's like. But there's magnetic fields out there that holds everything together, including the sun. All right, when you calculate this in, you find out this is why the surface of the sun is 9,000 degrees, which is less than lightning, but the atmosphere around the sun is 27 million, which is where we get our heat from. It's heating itself from the outside in. Things don't work the way that they've been portrayed to us, just so you guys know. This isn't something that's secret. You can look it up. It's a mystery that science won't explain, because under the idea of fusion reaction within the sun, which isn't how it works, it's electric plasma being lit up, which is why there's dark spots and stuff like that. It doesn't work the way that they believe. Otherwise, it would be getting hotter on the surface, not colder. Our heat's coming from the outside of it. It doesn't make any sense to them. This is why it's a mystery. It's something you can Google right now if you choose to. Okay. This is an energetic location, I already said that before, and this is where a fleet of universal, interstellar, universal vehicles and civilizations have been conglomerating. So almost putting a ring around the solar system, almost like an embargo, if you will, and they're working their way in now, all right? As he's saying this, and this is a recent conversation, this all lines up with the agenda, the alien agenda that will take place. Not only that, but from that Jeremy kid that said after World War III we get into a war with aliens that went to heaven and came back. His story seemed legit. I believe him because when I listened to the mom wasn't lying. All right, so it's very interesting. There's stories of that, including the backside of the moon and stuff like that, which I've discussed many times. This is possibly why last year or whatever, a lot of the satellites and stuff went down, or the telescopes that they had that were going on around that look out into space and things like that. I think they're covering for a lot of stuff that's about to take place. Aliens, which we know are demons in disguise, or Nephilim spirits, whatever you want to call it, are on standby for this whole thing, and it only points to the nearness of the rapture, the tribulation starting, and absolute pandemonium taking place. All right, actually they've been there since 1930. So it's not new. It's just only been discussed, let's say, in the last 12 to 13 years, but they've been there and now they're finally taking action. Yeah, they're finally taking action with all this power and technology. Why haven't they shown themselves in the beginning? Why don't they just pop down on the lawn? It's just here and there. They show up in a child's room in a dark window on a dark night, right, and abduct people. And it's absolutely sinister and evil, and you can feel the presence of evil just pouring off of them. Yeah, they're here for good. Give me a break. Lauren Eisner, help us understand just where humanity is at and what the timelines are all about. Stuart replies, we can be here for like a month or two. I'll try to condense all this the best that I can. The Montauk Project, here we go. Parallel universes and time travel. So in the Montauk Project, one of the agendas of what was at the time secret government, which since then became public one, but at the time the secret government in those days had an agenda of wanting to go back into the past and change things. So so that their position of power would be greatly consolidated into the present moment, and they did various things to try and make that happen. For example, they went back in time to try and assassinate Adolf Hitler, and it failed. They went back and tried to change different things in Roman history and Greek history, and they tried to kill a Christ figure. It failed. This lines up with the Bosago story and what he said from 10 years prior to that during Project Pegasus when they were doing time travel, and how he knew of stories where they tried to go back and assassinate Jesus. One of the guys was instantly swayed by Jesus. You can't change us. This gets into what I discuss about in the Bible with Mark when he says, there are some of you standing here which will not taste death until they see the coming. If there's a time traveler that came back at this time and they go back to the future and it's in this time right now where they came from and they haven't died of old age, they may see the return of the Lord as a possibility. This is just a crazy idea that I've discussed, but if there's any place in the Bible where it hints at time travel and this being written down at that time, I believe that's one of the places where it could be. Just a crazy theory. It's one of those things where I say, we'll have to wait and find out. Just interesting topic, okay? What they learned is every time is unique and there are infinite timelines. So the God mind, or God himself is what I'm going to say, has created every possibility that could possibly exist simultaneously. This lines up with string theory and the idea of 11 dimensions that we can possibly count up. Once you get to the very top, every possible scenario and time at that time is running at the same time, all right? I believe once we get to heaven and see how powerful God is, there's going to be things that go beyond this. He's literally holding everything simultaneously in place and running it down the timeline that he chooses and sees sees fit. Perfectly, every single way. And even when they try to manipulate this, talking about the government, fallen angels, Satan and his goon squad, it's all part of the plan. Everything's going exactly right. They can't beat him. He's already seen past it. There is no beating God. He has everything in control. So in actuality, you can't change anything because all the changes already exist elsewhere in other timelines. So if you want to accept one of those changes, you must then by default go into an alternate timeline where that change has already occurred, all right? So everything already exists. There's nothing that needs to be changed. So for example, there's a timeline where Atlantis never failed. It still exists. There's a timeline where the Germans won the war and took over. There's a timeline where there was no life on Earth. Everything you can think of exists. This is what he's saying. Now fast forward to this moment. If we look at CERN in Switzerland, the Hadron Collider. So what's a God particle? Which of course is a cover story because everything is God particle. Everything comes from God. Everything is God particle. This is him saying that. I would have to agree because God controls everything. What they're really trying to do, as you mentioned, is that they're trying to take the alternate timelines where their agenda is and force and collapse it into this one. Pretty diabolical idea. You guys have heard me talk about diabolical ideas before too, like them trying to blow up God and some of the other stuff. There's a lot of crazy plans taking place at once, and the ones that are deep into it actually think it's going to work. Just shows how far gone they are. And this is why people are experiencing an anomalous time situation. Things appear and disappear, Laura Eisenhower says. You mean like the Mandela effect? Stewart replies, I don't like that term. I think it's more like bleed through. However, you will notice every time CERN starts to do something, they're sabotaged. They're constantly shutting down the equipment. Last time, a ridiculous cover story, a squirrel chewed on the wire and it shut down the machinery. You have billions of dollars of equipment and there's a wire outside that a squirrel can chew on. Really? I'm going to intermingle here and say that I don't think it has anything to do with their Kuiper belt guy shutting it down because of evil. Well, I think God shuts it down for his time that he's going to allow and stuff like that, where they're going to get what they want, which isn't what they want at all. And he's keeping it at bay because God's in control of everything. All right. Looks like a cover story because the beings in the Kuiper belt are sabotaging them, which I don't agree with, to prevent them from collapsing these timelines. So the good news is we're being watched, help protecting, if you will, and so CERN will not succeed, but it will succeed. And this comes into the fifth trumpet and where CERN is placed, and I believe it has to do with them opening up the pit and it being allowed to be opened, and those creatures coming out. They're going to get what they want, but like I say, it's not going to be what they want, and that's going to be during the trumpet judgments, the fifth one in Revelation. It will not succeed, and the danger of what they're doing is that they could possibly overload the equipment to create a black hole that could swallow everything up. So they have to be sabotaged. They have to be stopped, and they are being stopped. Here's the thing. In the Kuiper belt, some of these things are not there because they care about us. They're there to protect themselves because every time there's a nuclear explosion, every time there's radiation, it affects their reality because it bleeds through. We are actually attacking them in some way, and so their species are, especially insectoid species that are part of it. They want to annihilate the human race because they've said humans are vermin, they're useless. There are others who just want to contain us like we're in a zoo and, put a fence around, all right? You can see the Nephilim idea, the Satan, the fallen angels and stuff behind this very idea and how they talk and how they're the ones that are actually portraying themselves to be these aliens and how they hate humans, just like Satan does as well. We're God's creation. They know that they're on a time. They might be able to explore in space and the far reaches of things right now, but there's a time coming when they're not. They're going to be plucked from up there. Their wings are going to be clipped, and they're going to have a short time, 3.5 years on the planet, and it's going to get real nasty during that part of the tribulation. All right, here we go. Humanity's spiritual immaturity. And yes, there was also those who are a little bit higher spiritual level who want to help us some way. But here's the cosmic or God law. When you enforce or impose knowledge on a species that's not ready to accept it, you're creating bad karma for yourself. All right. So, for example, if you take a child and give them a Maserati, they're going to kill themselves eventually. So you have to teach a child to grow and learn to drive. So before they're ready, before they're ready. So this is the dilemma because so many things are going down with the deep state Illuminati that there isn't time to have humans grow up, if you will. So their agenda now to eliminate the negativity and now allow a new, more benevolent control system to take effect until humans are ready to accept a higher spiritual reality. On this planet right now, there's almost 8 billion people. Of those 8 billion, maybe a little over 6 billion are very low spiritual mentality, I would say. That has nothing to do with racism, nothing to do with prejudice. It's just the way that it is. See, most people on the planet don't have clean water. They don't have technology. They have nothing, zero. People don't understand that, you see. You don't see 6 billion. You don't see those 6 billion. So those over 2 billion almost, they are responsible to uplift others, because the more you know, the more responsibility you have to take care of things, help others, you see. Yes, all right. Here's the other issues going on in society is where it's transhumanism, because people are so involved in taking drugs, working on computers all the time. Sexuality issues, they have opened themselves up to astral attachments. These would be soul attachments and stuff like that, spiritual attachments. And this is why they see so much cruelty and crime and complete destruction of morality, not only in the United States, but across the whole world and so on. This is another issue where people are not humans anymore. And quite honestly, Laura, we aren't really human, because we have such a mix of DNA from elsewhere that we are hybrids, so on. In effect, we aren't even natural species to begin with. See? All right, now I'm going to take this and wrap it up. This idea of 2 billion or whatever being spiritually enlightened, it's a load of nonsense. And now we're getting into the New Age movement and the very heart of this thing, and what so many people that have fallen for it are believing in. All right, him throwing in the mix there at the end that it's already okay because we are a hybrid, a DNA mix all over the earth. This is only going to fill into, if people start to believe that or get this sort of idea, that it's okay to, since you're already a mixture as it is, if you're going to mix your DNA a little bit further, let's say with a chip or some sort of DNA manipulation with Nephilim or something like that, that it's okay because you're already mixed up anyways, you're not pure as it is. And that's not true. We are. That was the point of the flood, and there are different people and stuff like that that they have intermingled with, but those that are walking with God and they stay away from that stuff, no, it's not. There is a purity, because the whole gap theory and aliens and stuff like that is a whole bunch of nonsense, all right? But I'm just reading this to give you the idea, to give an insight on what it's like, part of the deception, the stuff that's moving forward with the New Age movement and stuff like that, all right? It's very real, it's serious, and there's so many people that believe in this and have bought this hook, line, and sinker, okay? And they believe it's all going to work out and stuff like that. And why they don't know, why they're biding time, they don't realize they're running out of time to bend the knee to Jesus Christ and accept Him as their Savior. And if time runs out completely before you get to do that in this test phase known as life, you're going to go to hell. And that is no joke, all right? It's no joke at all. Okay, here we go. We are not natural to this planet. Natural species can go on now, feed itself, clothed, no problem, no question. We have to find clothing and home and food. It's like struggle to be alive. So we're not natural to this place. We're aliens to this place because we're not natural beings, and that's nonsense. And Jesus refers to this when he talks about the clothing the lilies and how everything is taken care of for us. He knows, the Father knows what we need. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. All right, Ascension. Okay, here we go. Okay, so human beings on this earth use less than 3% of their DNA capacity and only 10% of their brain capacity. So that's extremely insufficient. From my perspective, to ascend is to open up the rest of your DNA sequences at capacity, open up the full capacity of your brain, and allow the mind, which is different than the brain. The brain is equipment that the mind uses. You are a mind that is just your equipment. So when you open up your capacity, the equipment, to allow the mind to manifest, this is an ascension, and there's all different levels of it. So it's not like, Christ is going to come back and everybody's going to be floating around with wings and harps, It's up to us to teach one of us individually, to work ourselves, to increase our capacity and understand, learn, and to teach others. Here we go. The Christ consciousness idea that we can be like that, and it has to do with our own ability to work towards it. This is a total lie, a lie from Satan, all right? And that Jesus is just a guy that might have been showing an example. The aliens have gone as far as to say that they created him and sent him here as part of their thing, which is a total lie from Satan. Again, it's unbelievable. This is run through the Pentagon. I've discussed it before. Linda Moulton-House talked about it to me when I did that interview with her, and she was talking about a briefing that she had inside the Pentagon with generals and stuff like that, okay? It's a total lie. It's a massive deception and stuff like that. Totally evil. And they're working towards this Christ consciousness, and as they do this, you can just feel the presence of moving away from God and how the confusion is. And this is why I'm telling you, when I see these people, it's just a fog, glazed over eyes. It's absolutely terrible. All right, here we go. This is what I consider to be ascension, because everything you ever need for eternity is already in you. It's already there. It is the question of being aware of it and using it properly. So that's my understanding of ascension. Laura Eisenhower asks, absolutely, really just resonates. And And in our commitment of devotion and doing that, do you feel that could offset things like 5G? Stuart replies, okay, yes, let me just explain this. First of all, if I can go back to Q for a moment, Q has stated that President Trump is altering the 5G technology in the United States so that it's not harmful to DNA and the person. Give me a break. Trump's alternating it. Yeah, right. He's the one pushing forward for it and wants more of it, all right? And they want to do it all over the place. What is this technology going to advance to? It's going to advance to everybody being microchipped, all right? And how they have to have the internet capacity to keep up with it in the first place, which is what they're pushing for right now, okay? So that's the United States, and that's why we don't have chemtrails anymore, because he has stopped the chemtrail program. You don't see that anymore, hardly ever, and that will eventually become global. Give me a break again. I've seen him in the planes with the chemtrails and stuff like that. He knows exactly what's going on. It hasn't been stopped. There was a thing for a while where they said that it was slowing down or whatever, but everything's for an agenda, and even if it's to the point to make it look like they're moving in the right direction to get you on board with somebody who's going to deceive you later. Like I say, it's the Trump administration that is doing the closest thing that we have ever seen to creating the peace deal from Daniel 9:27. Very suspicious. Be cautious of it. I've told you guys enough time to be warned of this situation, all right? So be very cautious, all right? We look to God, not man, all the time, and that's our life, all right? So the agenda of the deep state was to alter DNA and mind patterns so humans become a robotic piece of their computerized system. That's going to come to an end. We also must look to species mind pattern vulnerability and being controlled by others. So when you have a vulnerable mind pattern, you allow others to take advantage of it. If you remove that, then all these hostile technologies cannot have any effect on you. So that is why I do not. That's why I do my work to teach people to release mind patterns that are negative, to remove programming in the mind control, to open up their DNA, to open up their mind capacity, so that they can protect out a benevolent, positive experience in the world, so that none of these things can have any effect. There cannot be tyrants, there cannot be oppressors, and so on. But it's up to us. That's basically the bottom line, all right? And that's the end of this, and that's what he says, all right? Well, here's the thing. That moves into creating your own will, the whole Oprah movement with The Secret and all that other stuff. You're creating your own will, you're moving towards this. This gets into other things like that, where you're moving away from doing God's will or doing things along the line. Yeah, we can absolutely ask for things, pray for things, and move in that direction if it's God's will. When we start doing things like, oh, I want a Maserati, I want a Ferrari and stuff like that, I'm going to will it into existence. No, now we're taking it away from God's plan, which our plan here, he said it's going to be tough, all right? We're going to go through tribulations. It's not an easy life. It's not at all. And don't be deceived by those that are doing that, because a lot of them are right where Satan wants them to be in the first place. And it all falls into this, and this is the end of this whole statement and stuff like that. But I really wanted to read this and kind of discuss it a little bit, which is what I've been doing along the whole way. But as you can see, this is the New Age. This is the New Age movement. This is what it looks like, all right? And you can see the demons in the background waiting to make their strike, all right? They're all out there waiting on the spot. Why can't they show up now, all right? Because it would startle us. But yet there's other galaxies and other dimensions. Why is this planet so important? Well, they'll never say that. They just give a little tidbit here, a little tidbit there, and you'll find this in every single thing. Whenever they're talking about aliens, whenever somebody comes forward, they won't say why they're fighting with another race or anything like that. All those races have been created through abductions, all right? And when you mix it with different animal parts and stuff like that, you create different bodies or organic android bodies, that I could say, that a Nephilim spirit can jump into. When they talk about reincarnation, all these ideas that have come from that, these stem from fallen angels and things like that, or Nephilim spirits, which are waiting for the final judgment, would technically are reincarnating, because when they're moving from body to body, and you know this within the cloning operations, the deep state, and how they think they can live forever, them having bodies in the back, soul jumping, the people that have been abducted and stuff like that, talk about where they're working on moving a soul from one body to the next body, and such and so forth. All right, this goes along with the same thing that the Nephilim were doing the whole time. When their bodies were destroyed, there's giants, their spirits were made to roam. They later can inhabit idols, inanimate objects, other beings, themselves, if they're recreated. If the government finds an old body of a Nephilim and they put it in a cryo tube and grow it back, that spirit that's roaming around could literally enter in, they can bring it back to life, okay? There's a number of different things, not to mention the hollow earth and the massive ant nest of giants that are living inside the planet, aka Nephilim and Nephilim giants and things like that, Raphaim, all right? They never give the full story on any of this. They just keep people dragging along, giving them a little bit. Is it real? the powers, the things, the enlightenment, the opening of the mind, the different astral planes and stuff that people get swept into, literally get to see and visit, you better believe it's real. It's totally real, and that's why the deception is so strong. The powers, you'll get powers when somebody sells their soul. You ever seen the magicians on the street and stuff like that? It's very real. They've sold their souls, but they very much are tapping into other dimensions. They're pulling 24-foot sandwiches out of their hand. Those are coming out of other realms that we hear some of the new technology talking about how they're hinting at being able to tap into other dimensions for unlimited resources. Those unlimited resources have already been given to people that have sold their souls and stuff like that, but they're trying to make it the norm and the okay. It's a reality. What people don't realize, especially in the atheism evolution movement, is if this was all an accident and stuff like that, how could there even be all those other things that are taking place? It's not. And of course, this gets into what Albert Pike says about how in the end, they're going to crash atheism and Christianity, which they say, and this is going to be people that are duped, fake Christians, phonies, or let's say weaklings in the matter, once saved, always saved nonsense, those that get left behind, things like that. They're going to crash both of them and bring in their ultimate agenda, which is Luciferian worship, which they're pointing towards right now. There is no conflict between this and the deep state. They're working all together in the whole part, playing one side or another, causing division, the same thing that they've done. You have your Obama, one extreme to another, then you have your Trump, one extreme to another. I've said it before. Make a guy look so bad that Israel would think that they're Satan himself incarnate. You bring somebody along that's just halfway decent, gives any ideas of peace, and they're going to look like a white knight. It's rolling out perfectly, and they're buying into it in some degree, and they want it. And it's all falling into place right now. It's always pointing towards the end time deception, all right? And the New Age movement, which is what this is called, this enlightenment, this higher level of enlightenment, Christ consciousness, whatever they call it at different times, this is all part of it. It's very real, it's very serious. And you can see from their point of view, especially when they're ascending to other levels, especially when demons are taking them on rides and not showing their teeth, the demons, they're not showing their teeth at first. They're looking like they're benevolent, they're there to help. We're going to show you a little bit of time, and oh, it's so magical, telling them they're going to live forever like this, and they're going to reincarnate. They don't have to worry about walking with God. It's all about their path and raising their conscious level, only to get to the point where, oh, they die and they're promised that they're just going to reincarnate and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Then they show their teeth and they get dragged straight to hell, kicking and screaming. And only the few that have experienced that horror, which usually come back as preachers because it's so terrifying, they never want to leave God's side again, understand this. Deception is absolutely out there. It's totally real. It's all over the place, and it's taking place all the time. I wanted to discuss this in multiple different things and multiple different angles and throw out as many points as I can so that you hear what I'm saying. So if you see anything like this that might talk or hint towards willing or being a Christian, but we absolutely can will things into our existence that we want, or where there's a little bit of this and it's okay. No, it's not. It all falls into this, and it's all a branching from this dark side of this. We're to stay with God, and the path is hard, and it may continue to be hard. We get breaks here and there, and there's definitely blessings that come from God. At those times, be thankful, but be just as thankful when He closes the doors on things that we thought we wanted and turned out we can just thank Him right on the spot, because later you'll find out, oh man, I'm glad I didn't get involved with that in the first place. This was kind of a different angle on a video. I thank the person, Joanna, who let me discuss this, because this was a discussion that somebody sent to her, and like I say, I wanted to go over and bring up some different points and stuff like that, but really hopes that it helps people on this very serious situation about the New Age movement and stuff like that, and this Q thing, and why the whole Trump administration, it's not to be trusted either. It's just not. It's not going the right way. Those that are talking about how he's with God and stuff like that, no. What you have to realize in this whole thing is there are levels of Christians that are deceive others, all right? If they are into a false reality of being saved, all right, then they're not really Christian. Can Satan tell the difference? You better believe it, all right? Just like YouTube can tell the difference. Just like YouTube knows that I can be teaching some serious stuff and I lose 50 or 100 subscribers every video instead of gaining more, which seems like an impossibility even when I'm doing encouraging. And then somebody like Chelsea Bendel can get on a video, all right, and parrot once saved, always saved from somebody else, and in 2 months have over 10,000 subscribers, only to increase. They know exactly who to block and not to block, because deep down, they're working with Satan as well, and it's very deceptive, and it's all over the place. People can put on a Christian face, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Antichrist comes on, even pointing towards some of that in the first place. Like, yeah, you can have some of Christ. I'm just fine with them, while we bring in other religions, part of the one world religion, which is an abomination, only to turn his teeth later after you get people involved, or he gets people involved and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's very deceptive. Okay, the demons, they know who Christ, they know who Jesus is. All right, but they don't worship or anything like that. Just like just like the group that was casting demons out in the Bible. And the demons come out and they say, well, we know who Paul is, we know who Jesus are, but who are you? They didn't have that personal relationship. They weren't walking, all right? Wearing a cross, something like that doesn't mean you're saved. That doesn't have anything to do with it. It's that personal relationship that when you have, then you already have the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation. You already have the armor on the whole time anyways, okay? You're walking with him. It never comes off. You're always with it. It's not something that you enchant or put on. It's something you might do for encouragement for yourself if you'd like to. But I know personally that it's always with me. It's always on me because I'm walking with God the whole time anyways, all right? It never leaves me. And those that don't have it, that are believing it's some sort of just something they can say or something like that, well, just like the demons jumped on them and beat them, they're in a dangerous place. Even if at the time the demons aren't jumping on them, it's only to deceive them and make it think they're in safe ground, that they're in protection. And then when the time comes, oh, you were over on the wrong side the whole time anyways, and you're in dangerous territory with no backup. Oh, we're going to jump you, all right? Very dangerous stuff, all right? Lots of different topics. I went over a lot. I kind of went fast. It was kind of a long read. I hope this helps some people out. It's a lot to take in at once, so I tried to break it down along the way, and I hope it helps you guys out. I'll catch you next time in the Legion, though, all right? God bless. Bye.